Okay. Um, I had to move positions again. Uh, yeah. Look, I'm not even gonna get into why I had to in this one. I'll do up a separate thing that if you want to, you can listen to. I'll mark it out. It'll be the next one in the series. But I'll let you know. You might just want to skip it. Yeah, this is getting pretty real. I don't even have these things up online anywhere yet. I don't know why anybody would be watching me other than somebody knows something. Somebody's gotten a warning out. I don't know why they care to tell the truth. I mean, so you know that things might be getting a little bit hairy. Well, you don't even know that. You hear some guy on YouTube saying that. You hear some guy on the internet and other places saying, the world's going to end. Well, welcome to Wednesday. This is not anything that I would have thought that the organization would have gone after. By the way, I call them the organization. It's a little bit like the SCP Foundation. It's not something real. The organization is just, well, the assortment of letters and numbers that would actually get me in big trouble for talking about it has nothing to do with the organization. That'd be like calling them them. Don't worry about it. That should be fine. I doubt they're coming after me for that. Anyway, I'm gonna try and do some of the SCP-based inoculations for you. Maybe pass some information along if I can as I'm doing it. It seems that's really what's happening here, is that I'm getting a chance to remember things to talk about, rather than just trying to lecture people about what I think they need to know. I think it's helping. Maybe even more than the inoculation idea. I'll try and keep on top of it. Let's see, I have selected out about 5 or 6 of these things at random. I'm gonna go past the first one, which is a very nice looking pinwheel of doom. It's a brightly colored plastic child's pinwheel with the factory stamp on the back. The factory, from my reading, is something special to the SCP Foundation mythos and lore for their fictional universe. And it's a story worth reading up on. It's an interesting story, but it's a story. A good thing to push your mind with, but not something to worry over all that much, I don't think. Hey, look, I'm working off my own personal background, things I've seen, things I've heard of, people talk. I will not bullshit you. Half of everything that I think I know is probably fake. That does mean the other half is probably real, but that's the intelligence community. Don't count on anything being 100% ever. Even inside, the smart people realize that most of what they know isn't actually what's going on. Let's start with SCP-163. This is a sapient organism of extraterrestrial origin. When standing, it's 2 meters tall and about 1.5 meters wide, the bulk of the body being suspended 50 centimeters from the ground. The body is roughly cylindrical with a circular mouth at the bottom, the equivalent of the head at the top. The 8 3-jointed legs arranged radially around the equator. SCP-163 also has a series of specialized limbs listed here. I'm not going to go over all of it. Got prehensile limbs for feeding, things that are vaguely insect or spider-like sense of things. Yes, I know spiders are not insects. That's why I pointed out. But, come on. We know what an arachnid is. This isn't high school. Anyway, something about like that. Sorry if I'm just getting snappish there. I can't believe what happened. Yeah, I'll get into it in the next one. Sorry. Oh, just gotta keep going. It has an endoskeleton, which consists of tissue similar to in chemical composition and structure to cellulose. Basically, it's an alien item and or alien. Alien stuff is weird. The real surprise with things of actual alien origins, how often it's familiar to us. How often you see an alien and they have a head, 2 arms, and 2 legs. Our best guess from inside. Yeah, no, I can talk about this. I've never signed off saying I wouldn't talk about it anyway, so made a mistake there. This is water cooler stuff, though. I'll admit that. But yeah, the best thinking from the big brains down in the basement has always been that we're only being exposed to things that we can handle when it comes to aliens. It's why they're normally fairly humanoid looking. Even if they're a lizard man, they'll be a lizard man with 2 arms, 2 legs, and a mouth with eyes on their head. The same with the little gray aliens. The tall Aryans are essentially human beings. So what are we looking at in this? Most likely that we have a universe teeming with life, and that somebody is selecting out what we're allowed to see. The other theory is that, well, it's kind of the one we've been working on here with the inoculation idea, that even people who can remember things like this, who can register it, who are willing to expose themselves for a long time, if things are too alien, our brains just won't allow us to handle it. Now, if things come in at that level, we're screwed. We're just always going to be screwed. Let's see, that was SCP-163. Now, I've selected these out at random. Not all of them are going to be things that I know a huge amount about. Some of them might just be goofy. Like this next one, I'm just going to skip. That was SCP-162, which is a mass of fish hooks, fish line, needles, scissors, and other sharp objects. It's a sharp ball. Okay. Apparently it becomes violent towards people. Yeah, objects generally don't work that way. They're either anomalous objects or mental effects that appear to have something to do with an object, which probably don't. Let's see. SCP-165. Object Class Keter. Now, here is something I've been meaning to mention. In the SCPs, they run 3 classifications. Safe, Euclid, Keter. Now, in every classification I've ever seen, we have way more subcategories, and things aren't listed out as, like, generically, really. You have a complex number code, which will tell you an awful lot about an object or humanoid being, or even a place, where if you know how to read the numbers and letters, you can pretty much get an entire story in a short line. I'm not going to go into all of it. That actually gets into data that could really get me into trouble. But the point is that that part is really different. There's nothing particularly wrong with their safe Euclid and Keter class things for the SCPs. Really, for a story, I find that a far more elegant way of doing it. Takes a lot less training to work out. There are people that I've worked with for 10, 15, 20 years sometimes who still can't actually read the codes and have to get into the data and look at the pictures to figure out what they're dealing with. So anyway, SCP-165. Okay, so I'm just not allowed to say that word right now. The organic component of SCP-165 resembles that of a typical parasitic mite. 750 micrometers in length, with 8 legs, and a genetic structure similar to house dust mites. The main difference is the hermit crab-like behavior of attaching grains of sand to its back. It is unknown what purpose the sand serves, but the massive colony of SCP-165 numbers in the hundreds of billions, to possibly trillions, creating a rather large sand dune, given that they're etching sand to their backs. We only know of about half the species on the planet. We have the large ones, but the small ones, not so much. So that you would have something like a mite that attaches sand to its back or something like that. I don't know why it would do it, but if you told me that this wasn't a story and that it was real, I'd probably buy it. Let's see, the similarities between data expunged and SCP-165 are only superficial. The data expunge's colony is protozoan in nature and apparently shows a collective intelligence and awareness that is not understood. This subject's colony is made up of individual Akari who don't show cooperation but rather competition in the hunt for food. Like mosquitoes, they rely on chemical detection of carbon dioxide and sugars in the air to detect prey. The Akari mites roll and bound over one another towards prey, only using their legs to climb over one another. When in contact with the flesh of animals, they release a numbing chemical toxin in their bite, similar in makeup to that of the mosquito and flea bite toxins. Subjects are typically unaware that millions of mites are taking turns at grabbing mouthfuls of flesh as they swarm around their victim. And that gets us into what's going on, because obviously if you have millions of mites taking a turn grabbing mouthfuls of your flesh, very soon you appear to erode away in a fleshy, piranha-like situation. Well, yeah. Honestly, the idea of the dark cloud is something that has been walked around for a long time. We have no proof of this. That's why I can talk about it. But, well, if you ever look into all the people that disappear in wild spaces, particularly national parks, some of them will be left with just, empty clothing on the ground, but when you look into the shoes, you'll find the feet are still there. Everything else having been eaten away. The idea of a cloud of mites or something like that actually just moving in and eating them so fast that they don't even get the clothing bloody has been postulated as a possible reason for this. Yeah, this is real. People vanish from wild spaces all the time, but sometimes when they vanish, it is not a normal thing. It's not some serial killer or rapist or somebody getting lost in a ravine or just skipping out of town. So, yeah. We usually call things like that the dark swarm or anomalous swarm. Pardon me. Oh gosh, I'm so choking here. That kind of goes back to what happened. Yeah, like I said, I had to get out of my previous location, and I don't know why, but I'll tell you about it. But it won't be one of the SCP things. I'll just give you a rundown of what happened. Yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff. This one shook me. I wasn't looking for anything, so yeah. Anyway, let's go to SCP-166. SCP-166 appears to be a human female in her late teens of average height and slender build. Medical and physiological analysis indicates several deviations from baseline human norms, including accelerated hair growth, about 20 centimeters per month, vulnerability to airborne particulate matter such as cigarette smoke and aerosols, which can induce symptoms similar to acute asthma attack, increased sensitivity to pressure ulcers, and alterations in dietary requirements. The subject is noted for her unusual effect upon human males. Upon establishing visual contact with SCP-166, 100% of human males tested attempted immediate sexual contact, regardless of their normal sexual orientation. In approximately 70% of these test subjects, the impulse faded after being removed from the subject's presence. In 30% of these cases, however, the desire turned into obsession, resulting in violent attempts to gain access to SCP-166. Class A amnestics. I need to learn that word. It is a popular one for the SCP things. Amnestics. It's a good word, actually. You know what they mean. They wipe your bondage. Anyway, amnestics were efficacious in 43% of these cases, the remainder requiring termination. That is another thing. These people, they kill their own personnel at a high level. In reality, we tend to warehouse people. We tend to keep them and try and rehabilitate when at all possible, which is most of the time. These people just burn through bodies. It's fiction, but in real life, you notice things are going on just because of the drop in prison population. Anyway, SCP-166's effect on males causes her no small amount of distress, not least due to her desire to follow a monastic life based on principles of chastity, poverty, and obedience. For this reason and others, contact between her and any male is strictly prohibited. Well, that part is interesting, but again, we're going back to the human with an anomalous pressing effect on other humans. Probably from a chemical release, the various things like advanced hair growth. Accelerated hair growth is not impossible. I certainly don't have that. I am bold as an egg. You probably didn't know that about me, but yeah, I am a pretty bold individual. But other than that, it seems just pretty straightforward. She gives off a chemical which basically is fast-acting Viagra. I'm sure some pharmaceutical company would love to have that. And in some cases, it pushes people to take actions they otherwise wouldn't. That is... I've basically seen this before, or at least read about it in real documents. This is fiction, though. So, yeah, let's leave that one. But, yeah, certainly that could happen. Okay, now this one's a little bit more interesting. Not that a teenage succubus that forces men to want to have sex with her isn't interesting, but that's really plausible. This one is a little different. Now, you might hear my chair squeaking from time to time. I took my chair with me. It's my favorite chair. I also took my laptop. I've been using the same microphone. I had a chance to get back in and get some of my gear, which is why I'm able to do this, because otherwise I probably would have lost everything. And I'm not talking about that yet. Yeah, sorry. Okay, SCP-172 appears to be a human being, 34 years of age, approximately, I'm sure, 185 centimeters tall, black hair and mustache, approximately 175.5 kilograms, which is 386 pounds, and of Russian descent. SCP-172's personality is very friendly and intelligent, if somewhat dull and repetitive. Which kind of contradict, generally dull and repetitive don't go along with intelligent. You can be friendly, but dull and repetitive. SCP-172 prefers dress from the 1860s, probably giving a lie to their being 34 years of age, and always wears a large ornate key on a long necklace. Internally, the SCP is staggeringly complex, sorry, I messed up that line. Internally, SCP-172 is a staggeringly complex automaton, possessing over 2 million moving parts and 18 million components at last count. Now, I haven't read this before. I just saw the cover on it, the title, which said, A Clockwork Man, or The Gear Man, actually. Where did that come with Clockwork Man? There have been some odd things happening like that. I swear it said A Clockwork Man before, and now it says The Gear Man. Wait, there's something going on. I've got to check this out. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. It's been a little over 7 hours since I suddenly got up. I went to check on things, and I found nothing. And then I lost 3 hours of time. I don't know what happened. I don't know what went on with that. I got up. I was here. I was talking about the gear man, the clockwork man, and I heard a noise. I thought maybe somebody was here. I thought I heard a dog barking. I went up, walked outside for a little bit, came back in, and it was just a little bit over 3 hours later. I swear it had taken maybe 2 minutes. So that means I was set to searching everything around here. The thing is, there are things that can cause that to happen, lost time like that. But the biggest one is, well, the SCP stuff, they call them amnesics. We just call them, basically by their names, and I'm not giving the names because some of these are things that you could get a hold of, and really you don't need to be using these on family members and friends. Yeah, it's not good. I hate to say it, but hopefully I was just probed by aliens, because otherwise it's a lot worse given the situation. And then again, who would do that and not just take me out? Was something done to me? Did I... I'm going to talk about this later. I'll do in the next video when I talk about the stuff that happened the other day. Yeah. Pardon. I feel like something's in my throat, too, so it's probably a... I won't get into personal stuff here. Okay, so, SCP-172, the Gear Man. Now, the interesting thing here with this is that in the historical records, we actually have stories of clockwork men. Usually men, sometimes there are women. But basically robots that worked on gears, sometimes even with a spring, and you wound them up. I actually think that's where they're going with this one. Okay, I don't actually see that in here, but you should read through that. This is SCP-172. Go to the website and read up on it. But yeah, just honestly, from that time period, and even before that, from the 16th, 17th century, we have stories of clockwork men who, when wound up, could do things like play simple games or, in some cases, even speak. Now, to us, this doesn't necessarily seem like that big of a deal. We can do some pretty nifty things, but remember, they were using gears. Even to have something that could just pretend to be human for 10 minutes while it was winding down would be kind of a big thing. And some of the stories, of course, told of something a little bit more significant than that. So, yeah. I can't verify this, but I've certainly heard similar things. Okay, SCP-184. Now you notice, again, I'm just going to cover this because I'm going to have to keep covering everything. It's just the way life works. But, I'm skipping around. I'm not going back and forth, but I'm skipping over a bunch of things. Fine stories. Some of them probably even have lessons in them. I'm trying to pick things that, just from their names, seem like I might have some way of adding a little information to it. It's not going to happen on everything. And the reason I'm pointing this out is because I'm kind of thinking that maybe this one is one of those. I don't know much about this. Anyway, so SCP-184 is a small, smooth, metallic object, 10 centimeters, which is approximately 4 inches tall, and 10 centimeters wide, in the shape of a dodecahedron. Each face of the figure has a circular hole in the center, and a small sphere is attached to each vertex. SCP-184 is made of an unknown but highly magnetic alloy, and about as hard as brass. When inside an enclosed structure, the subject expands the structure's inner dimensions without altering its outer dimensions, so it makes it bigger on the inside. Like the TARDIS. What? I've seen Dr. Evil. SCP-184 will increase the inner dimensions of any enclosed structure by several hundred meters each day, beginning 1 hour after entry into the structure. Initially, SCP-184 only extends the walls out, causing rooms to become much larger without adjusting the height of the room. This expansion continues until the original dimensions of the room have been tripled. At this point, the subject starts creating whole new rooms. SCP-184 is apparently able to copy items from inside the structure, creating furnished rooms consistent with the rest of the structure. After a period of time, however, the expansion process appears to break down. For example, items will be made from inappropriate materials. Glass books, a wooden microwave. Rooms will be oddly shaped, doors will open into blank walls, and hallways will be tiny or twist back around in long mazes. The new inside structures continue to be more and more odd, while the outside remains unchanged. This behavior is most dramatically illustrated in homes, however, it has been observed in other instances, including a cardboard box. The changes do not go away with the removal of SCP-184, but no additional structures are created. Now this is a little odd. Something that can bend space, make it larger on the inside than it is on the outside. Well, yeah, no, that's doable. It's not common, but it is something that happens. You've probably been in a place that if you could go after it with a tape measure or two, you'd find that it was actually bigger inside than outside. Generally, the larger the outside, the harder it is to tell how large it is inside. So a lot of things hide that way. While making furniture, particularly out of weird materials, that's a really interesting twist of the story. Again, most items that do things tend to be artifacts if they're doing things like bending space rather than haunted objects. And again, as I said before, the haunted object is usually an idea attached to an object, or a thought form, or a mimetic, something that is going to influence the way you think rather than reality. Whereas things that do actual work, bending space or something, tend to be very simplistic. For instance, a good example would be an object like this, where if you take it into a room, it makes the inside bigger than the outside, either permanently or temporarily. Even having it grow at a certain rate would make sense. To then add more rooms, or to do something like make furniture that's very complex. Not impossible, but it's generally not what I've observed or read about in real life. SCP-185. SCP-185 appears to be a Russian R-105M radio used during the Cold War, except that it has a crudely added keypad and LCD screen. The object can receive most radio transmissions, including encrypted signals. Attempts to determine how it can break even the strongest of encryptions have so far been fruitless. The item has a very long range, surpassing even modern radio equipment. It functions as a normal radio until input is added via the keypad. It seems that if a year is entered into the keypad, the radio will receive transmissions from a specific era, depending on if messages were being broadcast on the set frequency. This function was discovered when, upon entering the random number of 1939, Neville Chamberlain was heard declaring war on Germany. The possibility of experimenting with dates and times has been noted and is being researched. The possibility of entering future dates is being discussed. Okay, on this one, I don't really have much to say. Certainly, we sometimes can find technologies that work slightly differently than we think they should. My guess has always been alternate realities, or sometimes there's people here that are handy at making things who do something strange. This one's pretty strange. They don't say if they've managed to get any signals from the future. Not that I can see. That could be an interesting thing to check on that. honestly, what I'm saying here is that, well, a great exercise for looking at strange things. So I don't know enough about anything similar to this to really add much of anything. Again, I picked these almost randomly. SCP-186. SCP-186 is the site of an unrecorded military engagement occurring from 7/24/1917 to 8/13/1917 between two elements of the Imperial German Army and forces of the Russian Provisional Government as part of a larger conflict of World War I. The larger conflict of World War I. And continuing effects resulting from its aftermath. This conflict came to be known to its participants as the Battle of the Satan Woods. I'm going to go with Husatin. If you're looking that up, that is Husiatyn. And from now on, I'm going to call it Husatin Woods. In surviving accounts. In July of 1917, an armed engagement between a detachment of approximately 500 German soldiers and the remnants of a Russian division scattered during the German counterattack to the Kerensky offensive took place at the location of SCP-186. I am actually trying to, the town of Husatin in what is currently Ternopil Oblast, Ukraine. On both sides of the conflict, combatants deployed anomalous weapons utilizing technology that is yet to be duplicated or understood at present. This battle eventually resulted in deaths or permanent incapacitation of all forces involved, and approximately 300 civilians in its general vicinity. And let's see, what did they use? They used a highly modified weapon resembling a Skoda M1909 machine gun, capable of causing extremely rapid tumor-like growths to appear within the body of any organism larger than a common lab rat, mortar shells specially designed to be fired from a mortier de, I'm going to give this in English, 58mm Type 2, containing a gas that causes animal cells to become unable to cease life function. Okay. So basically, something that causes immortality. That's an interesting weapon design. Especially when you're creating pain all over the place. Have some pain. Don't die. Concertina wire coated with an unknown hallucinogenic compound that permanently affects human test subjects upon entering the bloodstream. Remnants of an unknown incendiary device believed to be detonated at the close of the conflict, accounting for what is estimated to be 34% of total casualties. British Empire issue number 27 type grenades containing gas capable of passing through all tested gas filtration systems, and causing humans to constantly experience the sensation of being on fire. Well, I actually, that one is kind of familiar. Using something similar to mustard gas and a microparticleization, instead of making mustard gas, you basically make a very fine mustard powder, which sounds like something that would make a delicious mustard, but no. If you make something fine enough and get it down to the nano scale, it will very often pass right through things that would stop a gas in the air. And they'll settle into the seams of gas masks, even modern gas masks, which are made to much higher standards than they used to be. So that one is actually, yeah. And if you ever, have gotten CS gas or something like that on your skin, you can understand how somebody might feel like they're on fire if the right thing were placed there. So yeah, I mean, it's not even really a secret. That's just a kind of a difficult way of making a gas. You notice gases, things like that, they're not really used on the battlefield very, very often. They're really hard to control. Even as weapons of terror, they tend to not be that reliable. Also, an 8x50mm R French rifle cartridge containing powdered human bone instead of gunpowder, purpose unknown. So they had some strange weapons as this fictional battle. Go on with a little more documentation, going into the point of it. I think the point is that you had anomalies coming in two directions that meet up. I think that's the point of the story here. And even though they might appear to have been normal situations on the battlefield, the end result was highly anomalous, was very strange, to a point that a person being there probably wasn't sane by the end of it, even if they could have gotten away. Probably why a lot of them didn't just cut and run earlier, because they saw things so horrible that their brains basically just caused them to freeze. Let me go on here. SCP-191. Description. SCP-191 is a female human child, approximately redacted years old. It's believed to have been the test subject of several experimental surgeries performed by the late Dr. Redacted. See below. 80% of the left half of the face and skull have been removed, with the eye and ear replaced by a complex transceiver system that allows it to receive and transmit not only visual and auditory input, but a wider spectrum of electromagnetic radiation, ranging from low-frequency radio to high-energy gamma rays. The lower jaw, teeth, and larynx have been removed and replaced with data expunged. The esophagus has been rerouted to an artificial orifice at the back of the neck, the feeding tube. Seems inconvenient. And the trachea rerouted directly to an air filtration device. Due to these alterations, SCP-191 is incapable of speech, although it has been reported occasionally vocalizing distress through rapid respiration. An input device has been placed into the right forearm, replacing the radius and all the bones. The device contains interfaces with a variety of modern and obsolete formats, including USB, Ethernet, Firewire, and DIN-8 pin, as well as 7 other interfaces corresponding to no known formats. The device can be accessed by pulling back the skin over the right arm like a shirt sleeve. A 27-core processing array has been implanted in the brain, which translates input from all artificial components, essentially allowing SCP-191 to read and write computer data without the use of an external interface. Fiber optic cables, damage to the brain stem and cerebellum due to implantation procedure, has severely damaged the subject's motor skills. The right hand and foreleg have been replaced by artificial components. 5 data expunged. 6 heart and major blood vessels have been replaced with mechanical analogs. Digestive system has been completely reconfigured to the point where regular food intake is both unnecessary and dangerous. The reproductive organs, uterus, ovaries, etc. have been removed and replaced with data expunged. According to the doctor's notes, this was done to provide extra space by removing non-vital components. Hormone therapy has been proposed to counteract the long-term effect of the missing glands. At least 15 other alterations of unknown purpose have been given. Given this fact and the haphazard integration of the useful components, it's believed that they were performed merely to test the viability of such procedures on other subjects. Strange implantations are not rare. This is not that strange at all. And despite what you've probably been led to think, there are many substances that can be grafted to the human body or added into it, which, quite frankly, the body tolerates very well. Ceramics, many different types of metals, certainly any coated metals, anything that's glass, are perfectly fine. SCP-196. Description. SCP-196 appears to be a middle-aged male, under 2 meters tall, of African-American descent. He claims to be 47 years old. Subject has black hair and brown eyes. There's no abnormal physical characteristics. Subject displays all basic needs of a normal human being. Subject tested with an IQ of 109, well within normal parameters, slightly above average. Subject's psychological examination indicated that he suffered from institutionalization and Stockholm Syndrome in relation to the Foundation's security staff. He demonstrates no Euclid type or other abnormal behaviors. Note, I've run a full battery test and the exam says that the guy is normal. Then we go down to level 4 clearance required. Apparently, we all have level 4 clearance, which I believe out of their 5-tier system is pretty good. At least their mimetic kill devices haven't taken me out yet. Then again, I probably do qualify for their clearance level, that or instant termination. SCP-196 appeared at, date and times redacted, subject planned to use recruited in a redacted year through standard D-class recruitment procedures. That's their disposable class, which again does not exist. No life is that disposable. Not the way they use it in this. Genetic identification checks confirmed the SCP-196 has encountered Foundation security personnel in the past in an incident at Site-17. Date and time redacted. During that incident, SCP-196 was far older and was killed by SCP security personnel during an attempted break-in at the facility. The subject was, at the time, not known to the Foundation as anything other than a lone human assailant. However, he was found to be carrying SCP, redacted, and several purely mundane weapons. While a Euclid-class event of this nature would normally result in an individual being terminated to prevent any potential for catastrophic paradox, SCP-196's future self is already dead. This means that if he were permitted to die, a catastrophic paradox would occur, damaging or destroying this continuity. There we go. So, you can't go back in time and kill your grandfather, but in this case, they can't kill the grandson because he's needed to go back in time to kill the grandfather. At least I think that's right. Okay, I'm going to leave these here for now. I'm rallying a little bit. It has been a tough few days. I'll spell this out for you. I'll go over everything that's been going on. So the next one will just be about me, maybe a couple minutes long, maybe longer. And then we'll get back to the actual work here of covering these SCPs and likening them to things that have been encountered in reality. So either skip the next one or I'll see you there. Thanks.